Some stories are better left untold, buried in the darkness where they belong. But there's a tale I can't get out of my mind, one that haunts my waking hours and twists my dreams into nightmares. It's called The Russian Sleep Experiment, a story of madness, survival, and the horrors that lie just beyond the veil of sleep. I wasn't supposed to know this story. You weren't supposed to hear it. But some things have a way of creeping into the light. The year was 1947. The world was still reeling from the aftermath of World War II, and in the shadows of the Soviet Union, a group of scientists were tasked with a dangerous mission. They were to push the limits of human endurance, to discover what the human mind and body could withstand. 5 men, political prisoners, labeled enemies of the state, were chosen for this twisted experiment. They were promised freedom if they could endure 30 days without sleep, locked away in a sealed chamber, exposed to an experimental gas that would supposedly keep them awake. The first few days passed without incident. We laughed, we shared stories, anything to pass the time. But by the 5th day, something changed. The gas, whatever it was, began to take hold of us in ways we couldn't have predicted. Our conversations grew darker, more paranoid. Every little noise seemed magnified. The lights seemed dimmer, the walls closer. I started to notice things, small things that made me question my own mind. It was the gas affecting my thoughts? My perceptions? By the 10th day, the room was filled with an oppressive silence, broken only by the occasional outburst. One of the men, let's call him Ivan, began to scream. It wasn't a scream of fear or pain, but something deeper, more primal. He screamed until his voice gave out, and even then, his mouth moved silently, his eyes wide and unfocused. It was like he was trying to scream out the terror that was building inside him, but no sound came. Another man, Sergei, started to show signs of extreme paranoia. He whispered to himself, muttering things about being watched, being tested. He tore pages from the books we were given and used his own waste to smear them across the glass, blocking out the scientist's view. It was his way of saying, we're in control now, but we weren't. Not really. The gas had us, and it wasn't letting go. And then, just like that, it stopped. The screams, the whispers, the fighting, all of it. The room fell into a deep, unnatural silence. It was as if the chamber itself had been plunged into darkness, even though the lights still flickered above. The silence was worse than the noise. It pressed in on me, filling my mind with thoughts I didn't want to have. Days passed, at least I think they were days. It was hard to tell. The gas, the lack of sleep, it was all blending together. Time lost its meaning. The others, they stopped talking, stopped moving, even. They just sat there, staring at nothing, their bodies twisted in unnatural ways. It was like they were waiting for something, waiting for the end. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they made the decision to open the chamber. I remember the sound of the door unlocking, the hiss of air as it swung open, but nothing could have prepared them or me for what was inside. The stench hit them first, a thick, cloying smell of death and decay. But it wasn't just the smell that made them recoil. It was us, what we had become. 4 of us were still alive, but barely. Our bodies were mutilated beyond recognition, the skin peeled back to reveal muscle and bone. We had done this to ourselves, tearing at our own flesh in a desperate attempt to stay awake. Blood pooled on the floor, thick and dark, the walls smeared with gore. But the worst part wasn't the sight. It was the eyes. Those eyes, hollow and empty, stared back at the scientists with a strange, unnatural clarity. We were alive, but there was nothing human left in us. They didn't listen. They tried to sedate us, to put us under, but we resisted with a strength that wasn't our own. One of us, I don't know his name anymore, was taken for a final experiment. They strapped him down, tried to understand what had gone wrong. But even in that state, he was stronger than all of them. He broke free, tearing through the restraints like they were paper. I'll never forget the look in his eyes as he leaned in close, a twisted smile on his lips. He whispered to them, to me, I've seen what lies beyond sleep. You should never have opened that door. And then I knew, deep down, that we had become something else, something that was never meant to be. The gas had unlocked something in us, something primal and terrifying, and now it was too late to go back. They shut the experiment down after that, closed the facility, buried the evidence. No one ever spoke of it again. But I remember. I'll always remember. And now, so will you. So, the next time you find yourself lying awake in the dead of night, staring into the darkness, remember this story. Remember what lies beyond sleep. And whatever you do, don't close your eyes. If this story kept you awake tonight, don't forget to subscribe for more tales that will haunt your dreams. Until next time, sleep tight.